They laughed when they tore off her skirt, thought it was just another prank on the quiet black girl no one would defend. But what they didn't know, the nobody they humiliated, was a national karate champion, trained to fight long before she ever stepped into their school. One kick away from revenge, one breath away from exposing every lie this town hides under its smiling faces. The question isn't if she'll strike back, it's how hard. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments and stay till the end, because this ending, it's gonna shut everyone up. The morning light cut through the fog that hung over Brookdale High, slicing across rows of polished cars and students in orange and white jackets. The chatter was loud, confident, territorial. Then silence rippled through the courtyard as Ariana Cole stepped out of the rusted sedan that didn't belong in the parking lot. She adjusted her navy blue sweater, clutching a binder tight against her chest. Her curls framed a calm, unreadable face. Eyes followed her, curious, skeptical, some amused. Brookdale had its order, its hierarchy, and this quiet black girl didn't fit anywhere in it. At the flag ceremony, the school's motto was projected behind the stage: one family, one future. Principal Briggs stood tall in his tailored suit, smiling that politician's smile. Here at Brookdale, he declared, we don't see color, only commitment. The crowd clapped, the subtext thick enough to taste. Ariana's jaw tightened. She kept her eyes down, pretending the words didn't land where they were meant to. Ethan Briggs, his son, leaned against the railing with his Letterman jacket half-zipped. The golden bee caught the light. Around him, his teammates laughed at something, whispered in his ear. His smirk was casual, almost friendly until his eyes met hers. Welcome to paradise, he said later in the hallway, tossing a basketball from one hand to the other. You play? Ariana shook her head. Not that kind of game. Ethan grinned. Guess we'll have to teach you the rules then. In P.E., the gym echoed with sneakers and whistles. The smell of varnish and sweat clung to the air. Ariana stood apart during the drills, quiet but observant. When the coach threw her the ball, she caught it with surprising precision. The other students watched. Ethan spun his ball lazily, pretending not to care. Let's see what you got, new girl, he said. The ball came back to her. She aimed for the hoop too fast, too firm. It rebounded off the rim and smacked straight into Ethan's face. The sound thud, then silence. For a second, no one moved. Then laughter exploded. Ethan's hand went to his nose. No blood. Just shock, then anger. His friends howled. Yo! She took you out, Briggs. Ariana froze, heart hammering. She opened her mouth to apologize, but the look in Ethan's eyes stopped her cold. He wasn't embarrassed, he was calculating. Nice shot, he said slowly, the corner of his lip curling. Guess I owe you one. The coach barked orders, trying to restore order, but the energy had shifted. The laughter didn't fade. It followed her out of the gym, down the hall, echoing in the locker room. She could feel it crawling under her skin, sharp and alive. Outside, she leaned against the cold brick wall, exhaling hard. For a moment, her hand trembled not from fear, but restraint. Through the glass doors, Ethan and his crew passed by again, swaggering, joking, already plotting. His voice carried just enough for her to hear. Lunch is gonna be fun. Let's make sure our new friend feels at home. Ariana's eyes lifted, steady and unblinking. She didn't say a word, but something in her face, quiet, burning, made Chloe, standing nearby, hesitate. As the bell rang, Ariana walked toward the cafeteria, unaware that the next few minutes would mark the line between who she had been and who she was about to become. That afternoon, Ethan's lesson began, and it would spiral far beyond a harmless prank. The cafeteria roared with the sound of hundreds of voices, trays clattering, and sneakers squeaking across tile. The smell of pizza and bleach hung in the air. Ariana moved carefully through the maze of tables, keeping her tray close, searching for an empty spot. Heads turned. Conversations dipped. She could feel eyes tracking her every step, the new girl walking into the lion's den. At the center table sat Ethan Briggs and his crew, all in matching orange bee jackets. The table was their throne. Laughter rolled from it like thunder. Chloe sat with them, quieter than usual, picking at her food. "Yo, there she is," said Tyler, one of Ethan's teammates, the sniper. Ethan grinned without looking up. "About time she showed up. Thought she'd transfer by lunch." Ariana kept walking. The only open seat was near their table. She sat down, lowered her head, and tried to eat. Ethan stood. The entire group watched as he strolled toward her. His footsteps were slow, deliberate, the sound swallowed by the cafeteria's hum. He stopped just behind her. "You hit hard, Cole," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Maybe you should try out for the team." A few chuckles rippled. Ariana didn't look up. He leaned closer. "Hey, relax. We're just having fun here." Tyler whispered something. Another boy snickered. Chloe's fork froze midair. Then it happened. Tyler took a step forward, pretending to trip. His hand shot out, grabbing the edge of Ariana's skirt. A sharp tug, fabric ripped. Gasps, then laughter. The sound hit like a wall. Ariana's body went rigid. The tray clattered to the floor. Her breath stuck somewhere between her chest and her throat. Around her, phones lifted screens glowing like tiny, cruel eyes. Ethan stood there, smiling. "Welcome to Brookdale," he said softly. The laughter grew louder. For a heartbeat, the room blurred the faces, the noise, the humiliation. She grabbed her jacket, wrapped it around her waist, and ran. The sound of mocking voices followed her down the hallway, bouncing off lockers, chasing her like a swarm of hornets. But none of them noticed the quiet boy sitting near the back, Liam Torres, a camera in his hands. His phone had been recording from the moment Ethan stood up. His lens caught everything. The shove, the tear, the laughter, the smirk. He lowered the phone slowly, eyes wide, heart pounding. Back in the hallway, Ariana stopped near the vending machines. The fluorescent lights above her flickered. Her hands shook as she tugged her jacket tighter. A tear slipped down her cheek, but she wiped it away before it could fall. The echo of laughter still rang in her ears. For a long moment, she just stood there breathing, trembling, refusing to break. Then something inside her shifted. Her reflection in the vending machine looked back at her, eyes no longer wide with fear, but sharpened, steady. From across the hall, Chloe appeared, frozen halfway to her. Their eyes met for a brief, heavy second. Chloe's full of guilt, Ariana's full of quiet fire. Chloe opened her mouth, then closed it. She turned away. Ariana watched her leave. Then she looked down the long, empty hallway, the fluorescent lights stretching into distance like a tunnel. That night, the quiet girl began to move in the dark, and the world around Brookdale High would never be the same again. The moonlight spilled through the thin curtains of Ariana's room, painting long silver bars across the carpet. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs and the faint ticking of a clock that never seemed to move fast enough. Ariana sat on the edge of her bed, still in the clothes she'd worn to school. The laughter from the cafeteria echoed in her head like a broken record, sharp, taunting, endless. Her hands trembled, not from weakness but from something deeper, heavier. She rose and crossed to the closet. Buried beneath stacks of textbooks and forgotten boxes was an old wooden chest, its edges scuffed, the brass lock dulled by time. She hesitated, fingers hovering over it. Then she unlatched it slowly, the hinges creaking like a breath long held. Inside lay her past, a neatly folded white gi, faintly smelling of cedar, a pair of worn gloves, and a black belt coiled like a sleeping serpent. Her fingers brushed the fabric. 1,000 memories flooded back. The echo of a dojo filled the room, bare feet on mats, the sharp crack of a strike meeting its mark. "Focus," a voice said, deep and steady. Her father's voice, Mr. Cole. She could see him again in her mind's eye, tall, shoulders broad, eyes soft when he looked at her. He'd been both soldier and teacher, a man who believed in restraint over rage. The real weapon of a fighter isn't strength, he used to say. It's discipline. You win long before you strike. He disappeared last spring. The police called it an accident. Ariana never believed that. Her chest tightened. Then came another memory, one she had tried to bury. The championship. The crowd roaring, her opponent falling. The referee's whistle, then chaos. Her victory revoked. Headlines screaming, disqualified. UN sportsmanlike conduct. But that wasn't the truth, not all of it. She'd seen her father arguing with someone in a dark hallway after the match, men in suits, sponsors whispering about arrangements. The next day, he was gone. The investigation quietly closed. The dojo shut down. And Ariana Brookdale's quiet new girl was born from the ashes of that scandal. Now, staring at the gi in her hands, she understood what had been taken from her wasn't just her title, it was her voice. She stood, unfolding the uniform, running her palm across the embroidered name, A. Cole. The fabric was lighter than she remembered. She tied the black belt around her waist too tightly, as if binding herself to the promise she'd once broken. In the mirror, the girl staring back wasn't the same one who'd been humiliated in the cafeteria. Her eyes were colder, steadier. The bruises inside her had turned to steel. She whispered, barely audible, "No more silence." The house seemed to hold its breath with her. Then she pulled the belt loose and folded the gi carefully, placing it on her desk beneath the lamplight like an offering. Outside, a car passed by, headlights sweeping across her window. For a brief second, she saw her reflection layered over the night sky, a ghost of who she used to be and the shadow of who she was becoming. The next morning, Ariana would begin her counterattack, but not with her fists. By Monday morning, Ariana Cole had mastered the art of pretending nothing happened. She walked through the halls of Brookdale High like a ghost, shoulders squared, face blank, eyes unreadable. The whispers followed her, but she no longer flinched. Every step she took felt rehearsed, controlled, quiet, like the calm before a storm. Ethan's laughter still echoed from the locker rows. His crew acted as if the cafeteria incident were ancient history, just another prank swallowed by the rhythm of high school life. But Ariana knew better. Monsters thrived in silence, and silence was what she was about to break. At lunch, she spotted Liam Torres sitting at the far corner of the courtyard, earbuds in, sketching in his notebook. He looked up when she approached, hesitant, cautious. "I saw what you did," she said softly. Liam blinked. "What I did? You recorded it." His eyes widened. For a second, he thought she might accuse him. But her tone wasn't angry. It was steady, deliberate. "I need that video," she added. He hesitated, then nodded and opened his backpack. Inside was his camera, the same one he used for the school's media club. He pulled out a memory card and handed it to her. "Keep it quiet," he said. "If they find out—" "They won't," Ariana cut in. Her voice was sharper now, like a blade that had finally been unsheathed. They went to the empty computer lab. The fluorescent lights hummed above them, washing the room in sterile white. Liam slid the card into the port, and the screen came alive. There it was, the cafeteria, frozen in motion. The laughter, the pulling of fabric, the humiliation immortalized in pixels. Ariana's breath caught, her jaw tightening. "Pause it," she whispered. Liam dragged the timeline back a few seconds, zoomed in on the background. Through the blur of students, the camera caught something they hadn't noticed before: a man standing near the corner of the room. His posture was unmistakable. His suit, immaculate. His face, cold and expressionless. Principal Briggs. He had been there the entire time, watching. Liam leaned closer. "He saw everything," he muttered. Ariana's pulse thundered. She stared at the frame, the principal's figure sharp against the chaos. No movement, no reaction, just a witness who chose silence. "That's it," she said. "That's what they can't hide." She reached into her bag, pulling out a flash drive. "We'll make copies. Multiple." They copied the file, burning it to the drive. Liam looked uneasy. "You're going to go public with it?" "Not yet," Ariana said. slipping the flash drive into her pocket. First, we find the right moment. From the doorway, Chloe watched them half-hidden, torn. Her expression flickered between guilt and fear. She had laughed that day. She hadn't meant to, but she had. Now, seeing Ariana's quiet resolve, something in her shifted. Ariana gathered her things. "Thanks," she said to Liam. "If anyone asks, this never happened." He nodded. "Be careful, Cole." She turned to leave, her reflection flashing across the computer screen, a girl caught between fury and control. The storm inside her was silent, but not still. As she stepped into the hallway, the sound of the basketball echoing from the gym reached her. Ethan's voice followed, arrogant and careless. She didn't stop walking. She didn't look back. But her hand tightened around the flash drive like it was a weapon. Before Ariana and Liam could act, the next morning brought a brutal surprise. The video had vanished from the school's entire network, erased as if it had never existed. The blinds in Principal Briggs's office were drawn, slicing the sunlight into thin, sharp lines across his desk. The air smelled of polished wood and control. A gold plaque, "Excellence through Discipline," gleamed behind him like a moral threat. Ethan sat in front of his father, the same arrogance he wore in the hallways now replaced by a flicker of unease. His knuckles tapped against the armrest, a rhythm of nerves. Principal Briggs leaned back, folding his hands. "You think I don't know what happened in that cafeteria?" His voice was calm, almost bored. Ethan hesitated. "It was just a joke, Dad." Briggs's tone cut him off like a blade. "There are no jokes when cameras are involved." He rose from his chair, pacing slowly toward the window. "You have any idea how quickly this kind of nonsense can ruin a school's reputation? Our sponsors, our donors, they don't pay for scandal, Ethan. They pay for order." Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. His father's back was turned, but the tension in his shoulders said everything. "So," Briggs continued, "I've handled it." "What do you mean, handled it?" Ethan asked. Briggs finally turned, eyes cold. "The footage is gone. Every file on the school's network wiped. Our IT administrator will make sure there's no trace left. If that girl or anyone tries to make noise, it dies before it starts." Ethan exhaled, half relieved, half afraid. "You didn't have to." "I did." Briggs's voice dropped, quiet and poisonous. "You're my son. You will not drag this family or this institution into the mud." Ethan nodded slowly. "Got it." But standing just outside the half-open door, Chloe's heart froze. She had come to drop off her student council proposal. Instead, she caught every word, every cold syllable that turned the cafeteria prank into something darker. Her pulse raced. She backed away from the door, heart pounding so hard she thought it might give her away. Down the hall, a teacher brushed past her. "Chloe, you okay?" She forced a smile. "Yeah, just forgot my notes." She walked quickly, slipping into an empty classroom. The silence hit her like a wave. She leaned against a desk, trying to catch her breath. "The footage is gone. Handled." Those words looped in her head. This wasn't about a stupid joke anymore. The principal had covered it up. He'd erased evidence, protected his son, and silenced a victim. She looked at her phone, thumb trembling as she opened the voice recorder. The red circle blinked on. The next time Ethan bragged, she'd be ready. That afternoon, in the hallway near the locker rooms, she found Ethan and his friends laughing about something, probably Ariana. "Man," Tyler said, the look on her face, legendary. Ethan grinned, but it was forced. "Yeah, well, that's over. Dad says the file's gone. No proof, no problem." Chloe's heart clenched. No proof, no problem. She slipped her phone into her jacket pocket, the recorder still running. "Still," Ethan added, lowering his voice, "that girl's not normal. You saw how she looked at me? Like she wanted to kill me." The others laughed again. Chloe's hands shook, not from fear but from anger. She realized she'd been part of this too, just by standing there, laughing when she shouldn't have. Not anymore. When the bell rang, She walked away without a word, heading straight for the library, her phone heavy in her pocket. The recording was faint, full of background noise, but clear enough to expose everything if needed. And while the truth was buried inside the school's servers, far from sight, another fire was quietly being lit at Ariana's home. The old dojo smelled of dust, sweat, and memory. The faded banner still hung crooked above the mats, discipline before victory. A single fluorescent bulb flickered overhead, casting uneven light on the cracked wooden floor. Ariana pushed the door open. It groaned, like it hadn't been touched in years. Inside, Coach Miller stood with his back turned, mopping the floor. He was older than she remembered, gray threading through his once dark hair, his frame heavier, slower. But his movements were still precise, every motion economical. He looked up when the door creaked. The mop froze mid-air. "Cole," he said, disbelief softening into a half-smile. "I thought you'd hung up the gi for good." Ariana stepped inside, the air cool against her skin. "So did I." He studied her face, reading the silence between her words. "You've got that look again," he murmured. "The one from the day you won nationals, before everything went to hell." She dropped her bag onto the bench. "I need to train." He hesitated. "After what happened last time." Her voice didn't waver. "Especially after that." A beat passed, heavy as stone. Then he nodded once. "All right. Warm up." The hours blurred. The rhythm returned to her body like muscle memory resurrected. Stance, breath, strike. Her fists cracked through the air, each punch heavier than the last. Sweat rolled down her temple, her breath deepened. "Faster!" Miller barked. Again. She obeyed. Again. And again. Until the anger inside her began to take shape, no longer chaos, but focus. Finally, she stopped, gasping. Her reflection in the mirror, hair damp, eyes burning, looked like someone else entirely. Miller tossed her a towel. "You fight like you're chasing something." "I am," she said quietly. He watched her for a moment, then sighed. "You've heard nothing from your father, have you?" Ariana froze, towel halfway to her face. "You know about that?" He sat down on the bench, elbows resting on his knees. "Cole and I spoke before he disappeared. He told me things I shouldn't have heard." Her stomach tightened. "What things?" Miller's eyes drifted toward the floor. He was looking into money being funneled through Brookdale's Academic Improvement Fund. Grants that didn't exist. He thought it tied back to someone high up. "Briggs," she whispered. Miller nodded. "He never said the name outright, but I knew the look in his eyes, same one you've got now. Determined, reckless." Ariana's pulse quickened. "You're saying my father, he didn't just vanish?" Miller looked up. "I'm saying he was silenced. And if you start digging in the same places, you might be next." The dojo went still. Outside, the wind pressed against the paper windows, whispering secrets of its own. For the first time, Ariana's anger found direction. The bullying, the humiliation, the cover-up, it was all part of something much bigger. A system that crushed anyone who challenged it. She looked down at her hands, bruised, trembling, alive. "This isn't about fighting anymore," she said, almost to herself. "It's about truth." Miller's expression softened with something like pride and fear. "Then remember what your father told you. The real fight isn't in the ring." Ariana stood, wrapping her black belt around her waist once more. "I know," she said, voice steady. "It's out there." She bowed deeply to her teacher, then turned toward the door. The night air hit her like a promise. And in that moment, Ariana knew justice would not come from karate alone, but from the truth she was ready to uncover. The hallways of Brookdale buzzed with their usual noise, lockers slamming, gossip floating like smoke, but for Ariana, every sound felt sharper, closer. Since that night in the dojo, the world had shifted. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was planning. She waited by the media room after class, the rhythmic hum of computers blending with the muffled voices of the journalism club. Liam was already inside, editing footage for a school announcement. His camera bag sat open beside him, packed with cables, hard drives, and quiet secrets. When Ariana stepped in, he turned his chair toward her. "You look like you haven't slept." "Didn't," she said. "We need to talk." He raised an eyebrow. "About?" Before she could answer, the door opened again. Chloe Hart slipped in, shutting it quickly behind her. Her expression was pale but resolute. Ariana crossed her arms. "You sure about this?" Chloe nodded. "I can't stay quiet anymore." She reached into her backpack and pulled out her phone. "I recorded something last week." Her voice trembled as she tapped play. Ethan's voice filled the room, lazy and smug. "Relax, my dad's got it covered. He's not gonna let some girl ruin the school's rep. He said the file's already gone." Liam's jaw tightened. Ariana stared at the phone, her pulse steady, focused. "That's enough to prove the cover-up," Chloe said. "Right?" Liam shook his head. "Not quite. It's just talk. We need the footage itself, something undeniable." He turned back to his screen, clicking through the school's internal network. The glow of code reflected in his eyes. If Briggs had the IT team delete it, there's still a chance the security feed backed it up automatically. Ariana stepped closer. "You mean the cafeteria's surveillance system?" "Exactly," Liam said. "Those feeds archive for 7 days before being overwritten. If we move fast, it might still be there." Chloe bit her lip. "You're saying we should hack the system?" Liam smirked faintly. "Hack is a strong word. I prefer strategic access." He pulled up a floor plan of the school. The main server's in the basement, behind the maintenance wing. Locked, alarmed, and only accessible with admin clearance. Ariana leaned over his shoulder, studying the map. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Then we go tonight." Liam blinked. "You're serious? I'm done waiting for someone else to fix this." For a moment, the only sound was the hum of computers. Then Chloe said softly, "I'll help." Both turned toward her. She straightened under their gaze. "I've already crossed the line by recording Ethan. Might as well finish what I started." Liam sighed, rubbing his temples. "You two are going to get expelled or worse." Ariana's tone was calm, almost eerie. "Maybe. But if we don't, it'll just keep happening to someone else." He stared at her for a long moment, then finally nodded. "All right. Midnight. I'll bring the access codes." Chloe swallowed hard. "What if we get caught?" Ariana's answer was quiet but absolute. "Then we make sure it's worth it." The three of them exchanged a look that said everything words couldn't. Fear, defiance, resolve. The kind of pact that only forms when there's no way back. Outside the window, the autumn wind picked up, scattering leaves across the courtyard like sparks. The school bell rang, but none of them moved. That night, under the flicker of hallway lights, the three would slip into Brookdale's underbelly unaware that someone was already watching their every move. The school was different at night, emptier, louder in its silence. Every hum of the fluorescent lights, every groan of the pipes above, felt amplified, as if the building itself were holding its breath. Ariana, Liam, and Chloe slipped through the back entrance of Brookdale High. The door clicked shut behind them, sealing them in the dark. Liam's flashlight cut a thin beam through the air, illuminating the dust swirling like ghosts. "You sure this is the right way?" Chloe whispered. Liam checked the floor plan on his phone. Maintenance wing, then down the stairs, the server room's 2 levels below the gym. Ariana nodded once. Her footsteps made no sound on the concrete floor. The air grew colder as they descended, the smell of metal and damp cement thickening. At the bottom of the stairs, a metal door stood ahead, no sign, just a glowing keypad. Liam crouched beside it, pulling a small device from his backpack. "It's a generic access lock. Shouldn't take long." "Define long," Chloe murmured, glancing over her shoulder. The click came seconds later. The door hissed open. Inside, the server room glowed with sterile blue light. Racks of humming machines lined the walls, blinking with rhythmic precision. The low whir of cooling fans filled the space, steady as a heartbeat. "Okay," Liam whispered, sliding into the terminal. His fingers flew over the keyboard. If Briggs's IT team deleted the footage, It should still exist in the security cache. Chloe kept watch near the entrance, her nerves fraying. Ariana stood close to Liam, eyes scanning the screens. Lines of code scrolled fast. Then, got it. On the monitor, a frozen frame appeared. The cafeteria, filled with students. Liam hit play. The video ran smoothly, Tyler's fake stumble, the laughter, Ariana's frozen figure, and in the corner, Principal Briggs, unmoving, watching. "That's it," Ariana breathed. "That's everything." Liam smiled faintly. "I'll download it to the drive." A loud click echoed behind them. The sound of a safety latch sliding into place. They spun around. Ethan Briggs stood in the doorway, the emergency lights casting his shadow long across the floor. His phone was raised, its camera blinking red. "Well?" he said slowly. "This is awkward." Chloe's voice cracked. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "Following my dad's advice," he said, stepping closer. "Keep an eye on trouble." Ariana moved in front of Liam and Chloe. "You've been watching us." Ethan smirked. "Security feeds are a beautiful thing." He lunged. Ariana sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, twisted fluid, precise. The movement was instinctual, controlled. He hit the floor hard, gasping. "Jesus, what the hell are you?" he hissed, trying to rise. She stepped back, ready, balanced. Someone who's done being afraid. He swung wildly. She blocked, pivoted, swept his leg. He dropped again, the fight leaving his body. Ariana pinned him down. Her hand pressed to his chest, but she didn't strike. "Get the drive," she said to Liam. Liam yanked the flash drive from the port. "Got it." Ethan's laugh was ragged but defiant. "You don't get it, do you? You're not fighting me. You're fighting a system that eats girls like you for breakfast." Ariana's eyes burned into his. "Then I'll make it choke." She released him, and the three ran. Their footsteps pounded through the empty corridors, alarms beginning to wail in the distance. By the time the security guard reached the basement, they were gone, leaving only a spinning chair and a blinking cursor behind. Back in his father's office, Ethan wiped the blood from his lip, hatred twisting his face. "This isn't over," he muttered. By morning, the headlines at Brookdale read differently. Ariana Cole had been suspended for attacking another student. The morning sun did nothing to soften the tension that wrapped around Brookdale High. Reporters crowded at the front gates, microphones raised like weapons, flashes slicing through the chill air. By noon, Ariana Cole's name was already trending across every local feed, but not as the victim. Inside Principal Briggs's office, the air smelled of coffee and deceit. Ariana sat across from him, her mother beside her, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Briggs's tone was smooth, rehearsed, the kind of calm that comes from years of manipulating truth. "It's unfortunate, Miss Cole," he began, "but the evidence suggests you attacked another student last night. Violence can't be tolerated here." Ariana's jaw clenched. "He came after us. He followed—" "Please," Briggs interrupted gently. "Let's not make this more difficult. Several witnesses confirm you were the aggressor." "Witnesses?" her mother asked sharply. "Who?" Briggs smiled thinly. "Students who saw the security footage before the network wiped. They all reported the same thing." Ariana stared at him, fury rising. "You mean your son's friends?" The smile never faltered. "Regardless of who said it, the board has already approved your suspension. 3 weeks, effective immediately." Her mother stood. "This is wrong. You're lying." Briggs adjusted his tie. "I'm protecting the school. Sometimes truth is negotiable." Ariana rose, eyes burning. "My father was right about you." That cracked the mask. For half a second, Briggs's face hardened. "Careful, Miss Cole. Words like that can follow you forever." They left the office to a barrage of camera flashes and shouted questions. "Did you really attack a student? Were you violent before? Is this a racial issue?" Her mother pulled her close, shielding her face. The whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. The angry black girl, the troublemaker, the fighter. By afternoon, the school's social feeds were flooded with headlines. Student assaults, star athlete. Discipline or discrimination. The Brookdale debate. The narrative had been twisted perfectly. That night, Ariana sat on her porch, the world pressing down in silence. Her suspension letter lay crumpled beside her. The flash drive with the real video was still in her backpack, useless, now that no one would believe her. A car pulled up. Chloe stepped out, nervous, holding her phone. "I sent it," she said quietly. Ariana looked up. "Sent what?" "The recording. The one of Ethan bragging." Ariana blinked. "To who?" "Not the local paper. They're all scared of Briggs. I sent it to the Beacon, the independent site in Chicago. They actually care about the truth." Ariana stared at her. For the first time in days, hope flickered. "You really did that?" Chloe nodded, guilt and determination mixing in her eyes. "You don't deserve what they're doing to you. Someone needs to hear your side." Inside the house, the television blared another segment about her behavioral issues. Her mother turned it off with a trembling hand, tears shining. Ariana stood, walking toward Chloe, voice low but firm. "When that article comes out, everything changes." Chloe's voice trembled. "It'll make things worse first." Ariana's eyes darkened. "Then let it." They stood under the porch light, two girls on the edge of a storm much bigger than either of them. The article was on its way, but before justice could arrive, a far greater storm was waiting for Ariana Cole. The auditorium at Brookdale High had never been this full. Parents packed the rows, murmuring under the dim lights, faces tight with curiosity and outrage. Reporters lined the back wall, cameras humming. The school banner, "One Family, One Future," hung above the stage like a bitter joke. At the center sat Principal Briggs, every inch the polished administrator pressed suit, perfect posture. A smile stretched thin across his face. Beside him, Ethan fidgeted in his seat, jaw clenched. The school board waited behind them, the picture of manufactured order. A low voice spread through the crowd. "They say there's a new video." Another whispered, "Someone leaked everything." Then, the doors opened. Ariana Cole stepped in, flanked by Chloe and Liam. The room rippled, half in surprise, half in shame. Her suspension had not silenced her, it had made her inevitable. Briggs's expression hardened. "Miss Cole," he said through the microphone, "you were told not to attend." But he was cut off by the sharp crack of feedback from the AV booth. Liam had already connected his laptop to the main projector. The screen flickered to life. Gasps filled the air as the cafeteria video played in full. Every second Tyler's fake stumble, the laughter, the look on Ariana's face, and in the corner, clear as daylight, Principal Briggs watching without moving. Whispers turned into shouts. He was there. He saw everything. He did nothing. Briggs rose to his feet. "This is out of context. You don't understand." Then Chloe pressed another button. The recording of Ethan's voice filled the hall. "Relax. My dad's got it covered." He said the file's already gone. The words echoed through the silence that followed. Ethan stood, panic creeping into his voice. That was just a joke." "Sit down," Briggs hissed under his breath. But Ethan couldn't. His hands shook, eyes darting from the crowd to the cameras to his father. "You told me it'd be fine," he shouted. "You said you'd take care of it." The room erupted. Reporters scrambled to record every word. Parents turned on Briggs like a wave. Briggs tried to regain control, voice cracking. "Everyone, please, these are fabrications." Then, from the back of the hall, a voice cut through the chaos. Calm. Familiar. "Fabrications?" Heads turned. A man in a dark coat stepped forward, his face half shadowed by the light from the screen. Ariana froze, breath catching in her throat. "Dad," she whispered. Mr. Cole walked toward the stage, each step deliberate. The crowd parted instinctively. Briggs went pale. "You," Briggs stammered. "You're not dead," Mr. Cole finished. "Just smarter than you thought." He reached into his coat and placed a thick envelope on the podium. "Everything you've stolen from this school funds. Falsified records, the cover-ups. I've spent the last year gathering proof." Gasps rolled through the crowd again. Ariana's eyes filled not with tears, but fire. Mr. Cole turned to his daughter, voice soft. You did what I couldn't, kiddo. You brought light to their darkness. Behind him, police officers entered through the side door. One approached Briggs. Principal Briggs, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice and tampering with evidence. Briggs tried to speak, but his words dissolved into the chaos of flashing cameras and gasps. As the handcuffs clicked shut, Ethan's voice broke through the noise raw, furious. This isn't over, Cole, he shouted. You think this ends with him? Ariana didn't answer. She just looked at him steady, unflinching as his father was led away. Briggs was gone, but Ethan still walked free, and the look in his eyes promised that he wasn't finished losing. The stadium lights burned bright against the polished hardwood floor of the Illinois State Karate Championship. Every seat was filled, the air electric with noise and tension. Camera flashes sparked like tiny explosions as the announcer's voice thundered through the speakers. Next match, Ariana Cole versus Ethan Briggs. The crowd roared. For weeks, their story had been plastered across every screen. The girl who exposed the system, the bullied, the fighter, the survivor, and now her final opponent was the son of the man she brought down. Ariana stepped onto the mat in her white gi, black belt tied tight, every motion measured. Her expression was calm, but her pulse beat hard beneath her skin. Coach Miller stood near the edge of the ring, arms crossed, eyes steady. Remember, he said quietly, karate isn't about revenge. I know, she replied. It's about control. Across from her, Ethan adjusted his red gloves, jaw tight. The weeks since his father's arrest had hardened him. He'd trained obsessively, fueled by rage and humiliation. His gaze was sharp, hungry. I'm not my dad, he muttered as they bowed to each other. But I'm not losing to you. Ariana didn't answer. The referee's hand dropped. Fight. The first exchange was lightning fast. Ethan lunged with a front kick. Ariana parried and countered with a sweep. The impact echoed through the gym. They reset instantly, circling, eyes locked. The crowd cheered, divided between loyalty and awe. Every move was clean, disciplined, until Ethan's strikes grew reckless. He was strong, but his fury burned too bright, too wild. Ariana blocked, dodged, absorbed. Her breathing was even, her movements fluid. She wasn't fighting him, she was enduring him. Come on, he shouted, voice cracking. Fight back! She didn't rise to it. Another exchange, his fist grazed her shoulder, then caught her across the jaw. The blow landed hard. The crowd gasped. She stumbled back, tasting blood. Ethan froze, momentarily startled by what he'd done. Then his face hardened again. You wanted to be the hero, he spat. Let's see how that ends. He charged again. Ariana ducked low, twisting into a clean counterstrike, her palm hitting his chest with perfect precision. He staggered back, wind knocked out of him. But her own body faltered. Pain shot through her ribs where he'd landed a kick earlier. The ache spread, sharp and unrelenting. She steadied herself. Breath shallow but focused. Discipline before victory. She heard her father's voice echo. You win long before you strike. When Ethan came at her again, she sidestepped not with anger, but with intent. His punch missed, his balance broke, and in a single, fluid motion, she swept his legs. He hit the mat hard, the thud echoing through the hall. The referee stepped forward. Point! Match! The whistle blew. The crowd erupted. Ariana stood over him, chest heaving, hair clinging to her face. She had won. Ethan lay on the floor, stunned, his fists clenched, trembling not from pain, but from something worse. Shame. The referee reached for her arm to raise it, but she stepped forward instead. She knelt beside Ethan, offering her hand. He stared at it for a long moment, disbelief clouding his face. Why? He asked, voice small, broken. Because strength isn't about breaking others, Ariana said softly. It's about standing up, then helping someone else do the same. He hesitated, then took her hand. She pulled him up. For the first time, His eyes dropped not in defeat, but in recognition. The crowd, silent for a heartbeat, erupted again, this time not just in applause, but in something deeper. Respect. Coach Miller watched from the sideline, pride flickering in his eyes. Ariana bowed toward Ethan, then toward the referee. Her body ached, but her spirit was steady. As she stepped off the mat, reporters surged forward. Flashes blinded her. Questions shouted from every direction. Do you forgive him? What message do you want to send to the country? Are you the face of justice now? She paused, looking past the cameras toward the distant bleachers where her father sat quietly, half smiling. I'm not justice, she said. I'm just proof that silence can fight back. The cameras clicked. The world had found its story, but Ariana had found something else: peace. By the next morning, her name was on every national headline, the girl who fought back. But fame would not be the end of her story. The storm she started was still spreading. Spring sunlight poured over Brookdale High, turning the courtyard into a sea of orange and white banners fluttering in the breeze. It was supposed to be a celebration. Rebuilding Brookdale, the posters read. But beneath the festive colors, the air hummed with tension. Students crowded near the stage erected by the fountain, where the school board and faculty waited under a line of microphones. Reporters lingered behind the barrier, cameras ready. Today wasn't just about the school's reputation, it was about redemption. At the center of it all stood Ariana Cole, calm, composed, wearing her black jacket embroidered with the word karate across the sleeve. To most of the crowd, she was a symbol, now Brookdale's once silenced girl turned national story. But to Ariana, this was more than symbolism. It was closure. Beside her, Chloe squeezed her hand. You ready? Ariana smiled faintly. I've been ready for a long time. The principal, now an interim replacement, stepped up to the mic. Today marks a new beginning for Brookdale High. We are introducing our first comprehensive anti-bullying and ethics program in partnership with the state board. Polite applause rippled through the crowd, but everyone knew why they were really there. The principal continued, his voice steady but cautious. And before we conclude, a student has requested to speak. He stepped aside. Ethan Briggs walked onto the stage. The crowd murmured instantly, some shocked, some angry, some curious. He looked different now. No jacket, no smirk, just a nervous 17-year-old boy in a plain gray shirt. His eyes found Ariana's for a fleeting second, then dropped to the ground. He took a deep breath and approached the microphone. My name is Ethan Briggs, he began, voice unsteady. Most of you know me as the guy who did something awful. I thought it was a joke. I thought power made me untouchable. But the truth is, I hurt someone who didn't deserve it. I humiliated her, and I let my father's lies make me worse. The silence in the courtyard was absolute. Even the wind seemed to stop. Ethan swallowed hard. Ariana, I'm sorry. Not just for what I did in the cafeteria, but for every time I made you feel small. You stood up when everyone else, including me, stayed quiet. You were braver than all of us. He paused, his voice cracking. I can't undo it, but I can learn from it. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. Ariana stepped forward, her gaze steady, not forgiving, but understanding. Thank you, she said simply. The crowd erupted into applause. Some clapped hesitantly, others wiped away tears. Chloe's face shone with pride. Liam, filming from the media booth, lowered his camera for a moment, just to watch. The principal nodded toward Ariana. Miss Cole, would you like to say something? She approached the microphone. The applause faded, and all eyes turned to her. Her voice, when it came, was clear and resonant. This isn't just my story, she began. It's every student's story who's ever been afraid to speak. Every time someone stays silent when they see cruelty, they become part of it. She glanced at the crowd faces she used to fear. Now listening, silence is violence. Speaking up is power. I learned that the hard way, and I hope no one else here ever has to. A murmur of agreement swept through the students. Even the teachers nodded. She continued, Softer now. We can't erase the past, but we can decide what kind of people we'll be tomorrow, not by pretending it never happened, but by doing better. A breeze lifted her hair as she stepped back from the microphone. The courtyard exploded in cheers, raw, cathartic, genuine. For the first time, Brookdale High sounded alive again. Later that afternoon, as the crowd dispersed and the reporters packed up, Ariana sat on the steps near the fountain. The sun was warm, the noise fading into laughter and conversation. Chloe handed her a sealed envelope. "It came for you," she said, grinning. "From Washington." Ariana tore it open carefully. Inside was a letter embossed with the seal of the National Student Justice Conference. "We would be honored to invite you, Miss Ariana Cole, to deliver the keynote address on equity and integrity in American schools." She stared at the words for a moment, heart heavy with something that wasn't pride, it was purpose. Chloe leaned beside her. "Guess you're going national, hero," Ariana laughed quietly. "Guess so." She looked toward the horizon where the flagpole cut the sky, thinking of her father, of Coach Miller, of every voice that had been silenced before hers. "I spoke up once," she said softly. "Now, I have to keep going." The sun dipped lower, painting the school in gold. The world was finally listening, but Ariana Cole knew that justice was never a single victory. Her fight had only just begun. The evening rain tapped gently against the windows of the Cole house, a steady rhythm that filled the quiet living room. The world outside had finally slowed, but inside, Ariana's mind was still spinning. On the table before her sat a manila envelope, worn and creased, sealed with black tape. Her father placed it there without a word. The same man who had once vanished without explanation, now sitting across from her, eyes tired but clear. "You kept it all this time?" she asked. "Mr. Cole nodded slowly. "Every page, every name, every lie they built this system on." Ariana hesitated. "Why give it to me now?" He leaned back in his chair, the old wood creaking beneath him. "Because you're not a child anymore. You stood up to something I couldn't fight alone. You've earned the truth." She unsealed the envelope. Inside were letters, handwritten reports, copies of official documents, some yellowed, others stamped confidential. She picked up the first page. Her father's handwriting filled it in, steady, deliberate strokes. "To whoever finds this, if I don't make it back, tell my daughter the truth. The corruption didn't start with Brookdale. It runs through the entire district. Fake grants, fabricated test scores, state money redirected into private hands. Principal Briggs was just one piece of a chain that stretches far beyond him." Ariana read in silence, her eyes darting from line to line, her breath tightening. "When I tried to expose them, they came after me, first with threats, then with silence. They erased my name from the records, called it administrative leave. But I wasn't the only one they buried. Students, teachers, anyone who asked questions, all gone." Her father's voice broke the silence. "That's why I disappeared, Ariana. It wasn't cowardice. It was the only way to keep digging, to protect you." She looked up, emotion flickering in her eyes. "You could have told me." "I wanted to," he said softly. "But the moment they knew I was alive, they would have come for you too." Ariana turned the next page. A list of names, politicians, superintendents, donors, each one connected to a web of educational initiatives that funneled money into personal accounts. It wasn't just Brookdale, it was the entire state. Her hands trembled. "So even after Briggs, this isn't over." Mr. Cole's gaze hardened. "It never was. He was a pawn, not the game." She sank back into her chair, staring at the papers. The weight of it all pressed down, years of lies, lives destroyed, voices silenced. Her story, her pain, her fight, it was only one chapter in something much larger. Her father leaned forward, placing a hand on hers. "You've already done more than I ever could. But if you choose to keep going, you'll be walking into something bigger than both of us." Ariana looked at him, eyes steady. "Then I'll need to be stronger." He smiled faintly. pride cutting through the sorrow. You already are. Later that night, Ariana sat alone at her desk. The envelope lay open beside her. Its contents spread across the wood like fragments of a puzzle. The rain had stopped, leaving only silence. She took a sheet of paper and began to write, not as a student, not as a victim, but as something new. I thought my fight was about one school. But injustice doesn't live in one building. It hides in every system that teaches us to stay quiet. So, I won't stay quiet anymore. Her pen moved faster. I will speak. I will organize. I will fight. For every kid who's been silenced, for every teacher who's been punished for caring, for every truth buried under bureaucracy. She folded the paper carefully and tucked it into the envelope beside her father's letters. Their stories now lived together, past and future, silence and voice. When she turned to the window, the moonlight broke through the clouds, spilling across the walls of her room. It reminded her of the dojo, the light that always followed the discipline, the calm after every strike. Mr. Cole appeared at the doorway, watching her. Still awake? Just thinking, she said softly. About what comes next. He smiled. And what's that? Ariana looked back at the papers, then at him. I'm going to keep fighting. But not just with my fists. She stood, walked to the old chest in the corner, and lifted the lid. Inside lay her karate gi and belt. She ran her hand over the fabric. People need strength, she murmured. But not the kind that breaks bones, the kind that builds courage. Her father nodded, understanding without needing to ask. The next morning, Ariana began teaching again, but this time, her lessons weren't about combat. They were about standing up, speaking out, and finding the power within to fight for what's right. The afternoon sun poured through the wide windows of the Brookdale Community Center, casting long beams of light across polished wooden floors. Laughter echoed through the air, mingling with the rhythmic thuds of small fists hitting training pads. A new sign hung proudly at the entrance. Strike for Justice. Empowerment through Discipline. Founded by Ariana Cole, the space that once hosted quiet after-school programs had been transformed into something alive: punching bags, practice mats, motivational posters. The energy was different here. Stronger, freer. Ariana stood at the front of the class, barefoot, her black belt wrapped neatly around her waist. Around her were a dozen kids from different schools, some shy, some curious, some still carrying invisible bruises from words sharper than fists. All right, she said with a gentle smile. Today's lesson isn't about fighting. It's about standing. She demonstrated a simple stance, balanced, steady. When someone tries to knock you down with words, with fear, this is where you start. Solid, grounded. You breathe, you focus, and you decide, I won't fall today. The children copied her posture, wobbling, giggling. She laughed with them, then moved among the rows, gently adjusting a shoulder here, a foot there. From the back of the room, Liam filmed the session for the community center's new website. Chloe stood beside him, organizing flyers and registration forms. She's really doing it, Chloe whispered, pride in her eyes. She turned everything they tried to destroy into something real. Liam nodded, camera steady. She didn't just fight back, she built something worth fighting for. After class, Ariana sat on the floor with the kids for their usual reflection circle. The rule was simple. Every student speaks once. No interruptions. A small boy named Malik raised his hand first. My teacher says I talk too much. But here, when I yell, he grinned. You tell me I have good spirit. Ariana smiled. That's because your voice is strong. You just need to learn when and how to use it. Next was a girl no older than 9. Her name was Lila, quiet, observant, always watching. Today she fiddled with her wristbands, then looked up at Ariana. Can I ask something? She said softly. Of course, Ariana replied. Lila hesitated. Were you ever scared? The question lingered in the air. Every small face turned toward her. Even Liam lowered the camera. Ariana's expression softened. She nodded slowly. All the time. The kids blinked, surprised. Heroes weren't supposed to be afraid. She continued, her voice gentle but firm. I was scared when people laughed at me. I was scared when they told lies. I was even scared when I fought back because standing up doesn't mean you stop feeling fear. It just means you decide not to let fear be louder than your voice. Lila's brow furrowed. So, you're still scared? Ariana smiled, the corners of her eyes creasing. Every day. But I don't step back anymore. I let fear walk beside me. It reminds me I'm still human. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Malik whispered, "That's kinda cool." Everyone laughed, including Ariana. The tension broke, replaced by a warmth that filled the space more powerfully than any light could. She stood, clapped her hands once. "All right, fighters, same time next week. And remember, the strongest punch you'll ever throw is the one that says, 'I won't give up.'" The kids cheered, running to grab their backpacks. Lila lingered, looking up at the large photo on the wall, a snapshot of Ariana bowing at the national championship, captioned, "Strength is standing when silence feels easier." As the children left, Chloe approached Ariana with a clipboard. "We're full for next week. Even the local paper wants to do a feature." Ariana laughed, shaking her head. "Guess I'm officially a teacher now." Liam joined them, packing his camera. "You've become what they couldn't break." She looked around the room, the mats, the laughter, the sunlight, and exhaled. "No," she said quietly. "I just became what I was meant to be." Outside, the sun dipped low, painting the windows gold. Parents waited, waving to their kids. The world beyond the center was still harsh, still unjust, but inside these walls, a spark had caught fire. As Ariana locked up for the night, she glanced at the Strike for Justice sign once more. Beneath it, she'd written a new motto in her own handwriting: "Courage is contagious." She smiled, turning off the lights. That night, as she walked home beneath the city's fading glow, Ariana Cole knew this was just the beginning, not the end. The next generation had already begun to rise from the fire she had lit. The studio lights glowed warm and white, reflecting softly off the glass desk between the host and her guest. Outside the tall windows, the Chicago skyline shimmered under evening rain. Cameras rolled silently. A red light blinked. Live. Across from the host sat Ariana Cole, now 27, composed and radiant in a simple black suit. Her hair was tied back neatly, her black belt subtly visible beneath her jacket, not as a symbol of violence, but of discipline. The interviewer smiled, cue cards in hand. "Miss Cole, thank you for joining us tonight. It's been nearly 10 years since the incident at Brookdale High, the story that changed how America talks about justice in schools. Looking back, what do you remember most about that time?" Ariana took a breath, her voice calm, resonant. "The silence," she said. "Not just mine, everyone's. The kind that seeps into hallways, classrooms, whole communities. I remember how heavy it felt, how much easier it was for people to look away." The interviewer nodded gently. "And yet, you didn't look away." Ariana smiled faintly. "I tried to. For a while, I just wanted to disappear. But truth doesn't stay buried forever, especially when it's wrong. When you see injustice, you have two choices: hide from it or confront it. I chose to confront it." A clip appeared briefly on the screen, behind them archival footage from years earlier. A teenage Ariana bowing on a karate mat, the crowd erupting in applause. The interviewer continued, "That moment your match against Ethan Briggs became a national symbol, not of revenge, but of integrity. What was going through your mind that day?" Ariana glanced up at the image, her expression thoughtful. "Honestly, pain, not just physical pain, emotional. I was tired of fighting to prove I deserved respect, but when I looked across the mat, I realized something. I wasn't fighting him. I was fighting everything that told me I should stay quiet. And when I helped him up after the match, that was my victory. Not winning, but refusing to become what hurt me." The interviewer's smile deepened. "You've since built an entire movement out of that philosophy. Strike for Justice is now in 12 states, and you've helped pass the first student protection legislation named in your honor. What drives you to keep going? Ariana leaned forward, elbows resting lightly on the desk. Because silence still exists. Because somewhere, right now, another girl is being told to stay calm, to not make it worse when someone hurts her. And I want her to know she's allowed to speak. She's allowed to fight not with anger, but with purpose. The host hesitated, her voice softer now. Do you ever think about Ethan Briggs? Or Principal Briggs? Ariana paused. I think about them often. Not with hate, with clarity. They were part of a system one built to protect power, not people. But if I only focused on what they did to me, I'd miss what that system still does to others. So, I don't dwell on them. I focus on breaking the pattern. The host smiled, visibly moved. You've been called many things: activist, educator, even hero. But if you had to define yourself now, who is Ariana Cole? Ariana thought for a long moment. The studio was silent except for the low hum of the cameras. Finally, she said, I'm still that girl who refused to stay quiet. Just louder now. The host chuckled softly. Beautifully said. She glanced toward the monitor. Before we close, I want to share one last image. The screen behind them changed again, showing the Strike for Justice Center, now bustling with children practicing stances, teachers guiding them through lessons on respect and resilience. Above the mats, a banner read, Courage is quiet until it needs to strike. The audience clapped. Ariana's eyes lingered on the image. The interviewer leaned in for her final question. If you could speak directly to your younger self, the girl in that cafeteria, what would you say to her now? Ariana looked straight into the camera. Her voice softened, but her words carried the weight of every year that had passed. I'd tell her that she's not broken. That fear doesn't mean weakness, it means she's still alive. And that someday, the same voice she tried to hide will wake up an entire system. The host smiled. That's powerful. Ariana turned toward the lens, eyes steady, unwavering. I didn't fight to get even, she said quietly. I fought so no one else would have to stay silent. For a moment, the studio was completely still. Then the director's voice cut in softly from the control room. And, we're clear. The red light faded. Ariana exhaled, a small, genuine smile breaking through. The interviewer reached out to shake her hand. Thank you for reminding us why voices like yours matter. As Ariana stood, the camera slowly panned toward the poster on the wall, the same words that had once hung in her dojo, now framed behind glass. Courage is quiet until it needs to strike. The lights dimmed. The image lingered. And the story of the girl who once refused to stay silent became the fire that kept the world awake. And just like that, the girl they mocked became the name every bully at Brookdale whispers in fear. She didn't need revenge. She became the lesson. From silence to strength, from shame to power, Ariana Cole didn't just fight back. She changed the system. What about you? Have you ever seen someone turn pain into power like that? Tell me in the comments below. If this story hit you hard, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the next story, it's darker, deeper, and even more real.